and we'll get going. I need a hat on. Sorry, I'm in the sun here. I've got sun coming through the window, so I do need a hat this evening. I've been out in the sun all day. It's been too hot. Haven't washed yet, still smelly. And I haven't really put any trousers on today. Tiny pair of Speedos is all we're wearing here. But anyway, enough of the raised beds and the walled gardens that I'm building. Let's talk about water and wind. So we're going to try and mix it up as normal between river dinghies and big dinghies that go on salty water. So we'll give a good mix. I usually try and look at the participants to check who's on, because sometimes if Mole, for instance, is on, I have to keep it simple. But there you go. Off we go up the beat. We're going up the beat slowly. And given all the previous things that we've done, intricate race starts, 3 episodes on that, etc., etc. I got a little note from Michael the other day saying, look, Garat, just sail fast. Hit the line at speed, at the right time, on the gun, and you've got clear air and you can go, which is great. And it kind of brings you down to earth a bit. We're going to use KISS, keep it simple, stupid, as much as possible, all the way through. So, quick recap. We've covered all wind shifts, both persistent and those oscillating buggers, as we call them. We've done lots of favoured sides for pressure and tides. And so, as I say, we're going to not do too much detail. We'll have a little look at Val, and it's a rat race there. And this is what happened just not long after that. So it certainly is a rat race. Thank you, Val, for that one. We could do with a bit more advice from Val. Just a couple of things that I thought were quite important. Things that I think are important, and hopefully you've learned a little bit on very quickly here. Boat number 1 down the bottom, which is, I'll get a little pen up, show you where he is. This boat here has been sailing along with a nice right shift. He's got a shift, so he's lifted lovely, okay? And then he starts getting a header. A gets a header. This is boat A. As he gets that header, what we realised, or what we worked out was, when should he tack? When do you tack on a header? Well, not immediately, because the wind is still going from here, which is your right shift, to here, which is your average wind speed, wind angle for what you're doing that day. There's your average wind angle. So in all of this area here, he's still lifted. So you don't want to tack straight away, even though it feels like a header. At number 2, here you tack, because at this point, the wind is now down the middle and it's starting to go here, which is your left shift. Okay, so we worked that out, when to tack on a header. Not straight away. You're still lifted. Very simple. We've done this one, so we'll get off it if I can and move on to the next one. We did this as well, so let's rub that last bit out. There we go. We learned to go up the middle of the course. The wind is shifting all the time, up the middle or on the right or left side of the middle, whichever's favoured, tide or pressure. The boat's on the outside, A, here, and C. A, I have some, I'm going to pen. A and C have gone up the outsides, and when they get to those relay lines, they can't play the shifts. The one in the middle can. So there are 2 important things I thought that came out, 2 important things to remember. Okay, so what we're going to do now is move on to a little thing that came up with me. So I don't know if any of you remember Neil Kelshall. We used to race on Reflex 38. And all the time, he and John Moore, who was main sheet, they'd worked out what their target speeds were for every wind speed. So at 11 knots, they should be reaching this speed. They knew their angle, they'd been out and practiced it. So every time we tacked and we went out there or the wind changed, we were heeled right over, pointing right up. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to mute you just for the moment, if I can do that, just so I don't get any Planet of the Apes coming in. There we go. Yeah, so I always thought we were too heeled over, and why were they going in for these target wind speeds all the time? And I put that to someone, a mate of mine, who kind of said to me, all right, you are right in a way. What they're probably doing is even in lifts, when they're getting lifted, they're really hammering it up into the wind as tight as they can, close haul. And I'm going to try and draw this for you, so bear with me. What he said was, we had a boat here, and you're sailing along nicely. And at the time, let's call that boat A. Okay, so there's your normal angle. Sorry about the dodgy lines here. So you sail along as fast as you can to hit what you say is your target. There's your target wind speed, because you get a curve, something like that. Okay, and it's called a polar curve, and your best speed at any wind angle. But as you get lifted here, the temptation is to come up into the wind, use the lift to point higher. But no, what he was saying is you sail faster. Keep going wherever you are. Don't turn up into the wind. Keep going on that line. Sail really fast, because at the top end, and I'll try and get a different color up. So when you get up to the top here, you've got a line, and they call it a ladder rung. So here, you've got a right shift and you're lifted. I've really over exaggerated that, sorry. You lift it up, but your right shift is coming down here, isn't it? When you get to here, that's your average, or average angle, we'll call it. The wind straight down the course at right angles to the course as you want. And then over here, you're going to get a left shift. So what happens when you're lifted here, I could draw a line, hopefully this isn't too confusing, like that. So if you sail to here, that distance there up the ladder is behind where you would be up here. Sorry, I'm going to do that one again. And that rubbed everything out. Just bear with me, guys. And you've got your polar here. So I don't know whether this is one for the nerds a bit, but what happens really is when you get up to this end here, you are further ahead than the boat that has actually sailed pointing higher on what they think is their target wind speed. Target speed is here. So because the ladders change up the course, I can come into more detail if that drawing's not very good later, but you are better to sail fast on a lift. You do get further. You do get further up the course, and secondly, you get out here. Now out here, the shift is going to turn and go the other way. So you get to the new shift. On the oscillating shifts, you get out to the shift earlier. So sail fast. Don't necessarily sail to your target when you're lifted. Sail fast, foot off a bit, go as fast as you can to get out to this side of the course, and you get further up the course than this boat here, if you'd sail to your target speed. So I was kind of right all along. It just didn't feel right. Also, again, you've got a big boat like a Sigma. It happens on dinghies as well. Sail fast in the shift. Big boats, Sigmas, heavy, need to sail fast to get up to their speeds. Use that to get up to speed.
Now,
so hopefully,
Marty, can I talk about an exception?
Yeah, Anna, I didn't know you were on, and that's exactly what I'd like you to do. Come on.
Sorry. bit of gherkin in my mouth. So the laser is a flat boat. You need to sail flat, and that is your best help, basically, when you're sailing. Now, probably from like 12 knots on, it's not really possible to keep it flat, completely flat, without depowering in some way. So from then on, to keep it flat, you would feather as much as you can, and then you'd move gear from footing off, which is what Ratty's talking about, to pointing. And women tend to do this a lot more than men, because we get overpowered before boys do. And like we couldn't compete. So basically, like, we get overpowered about 5 knots before they do. So our approach is to then take a pointing method. And if we manage to keep our boats flatter than they do, then it overall keeps us either on par or faster.
Interesting. I think, well, for those amongst us that didn't quite get that, I nearly got that, Anna, but keep the boat flat as possible at all times. Could that be it?
Yes, and basically as soon as it's over 12 knots and you can't keep it flat without depowering, then you change gear to pointing, and then once you're overpowered while you're pointing as well, then you change gear again back to footing, and then let your sail out.
That's interesting. Do you ever lift your centreboard?
No, never.
You never do. So in big winds in the Enterprise, it's best to lift the centreboard up and slide sideways a bit, rather than get pushed over by the wind, heel too much away from the wind. So that is interesting. Yeah, okay. Difference is we've got the Enterprise has got a hull with a sharp bit at the front, and it sticks down into the river, whereas the laser slides across the top. Okay, getting quite technical there, and what I meant to do is keep things really simple, but thanks, Anna. That could be really useful for any of the laser sailors on there. Brilliant. Okay, so we're off up the beat. Yeah, we've got the skills. We all are, let's get these content back on here. So let's say we've got all the skills we need. We've got good boat handling skills, good boat speed, etc. So we're all equal. That's the way we've been working it. Let's think about how we keep it really simple. If we get to the front as we come off that line, what do? We just want to keep our boat between the other boats and the next mark. If we're in the pack or a bit behind, keeping it simple, we want to sail fast, we want to get clean air, so we probably want to tack off or go through the fleet, whatever, just to get clean air, find the best side of the course again, and try and catch up. It's that simple. So, importantly, we're in handicap fleet races. It doesn't matter whether it's a one design. We're not going to, if we're at the front, we're really not going to look back at the boats behind us and say, oh God, they're tacking, I'll tack. That would be the wrong thing to do, because they're probably in a different wind system. They're probably getting lifts and headers, and you're then going to be caught up. They will catch you, because those lifts are so important. Don't look back at what's behind you. Hopefully that'll make sense. Sail your own boat, sail your own strategies, and keep doing the things that got you to the front in the first place. Shifts are really important. Although the exception to that is at the end of a race, or at the end of a race series perhaps, you will have enemies. So at the end of the race, it's really about the boat in front of you, if there is one, and the boat behind you. So then you start more boat-on-boat tactics. In a series, yeah, like Ben Ainsley did in the Olympics, he sailed Robert Scheidt off out of the race. He sat on him all the way. That was a boat-on-boat tactics. We weren't sailing against they weren't sailing against the fleet there. I've seldom been in that position at the front or in the front three, very rarely. So I've had to look that one up. Here's I think we've got the Scottish plumber on, who has often been in the first three, so he will know that one. So if I was behind, quite often I'd go, oh, I can't stand this anymore. I'm going to split. I'm going to go away. The leaders have gone that way. I'm going that way. Well, that didn't work either for me. You don't want to do that really, because the leaders are going that way because they're in the lead. So again, probably stay with the fleet, unless, of course, you've got some inside information about a big persistent shift or loads of tide out to another part of the course. You really want to try and stick with them. They're in the lead. Inevitably, though, at times on a fleet race, handicap race, whatever, you will have boat on boat. There'll be other boats going at the same speed as you. So you are going to have to employ or look at some of these tactics, okay? Boat on boat tactics. So very simply, few situations and advice going up the beat. Keep it simple, stupid. Again, the KISS, using the KISS method, and thank you for Mike for reminding me. Two things. If you can cross them. Get across them, because if you don't immediately, when you've got the advantage or the chance to, the wind may shift and you lost your chance. There are exceptions, of course. If you don't want to go across to the other side because there's no wind there, then you don't. But generally, if you're going up the middle and conditions are the same for each, there's not much oscillating shifts. If you can cross, the advice is to bloody well cross them, get across there. You've then got some options, haven't you? Let's get a little screen up here. And I've lost it again, so here we go. Bear with me, everyone. Let's get something up I can draw on here. So if you can cross them, go across. We'll get across to the other side. And then you can attack them if you want. You can actually get a pen up. So if you're crossing, get across them. If you want to, you can then tack on them. If that's the right side to go to, but you're sitting on top of them, you can sit on top of them even here, or as close as you can. It's up to you. If you really want to carry on, you can carry on. So cross them if you can. First piece of advice. If you can, don't let them cross. Don't let them cross you. So again, if you're coming up here and you can't cross, there's a boat coming up here, probably best to tack early to leeward. They'll be up here by now, but at least you're the leeward boat. And if you want to go that way, it's a good thing to do. Don't let them stop you and make you duck them if you can, if you can help it. Okay, so don't let them go across you, so you have to go behind them.
Bratty?
And yes?
I would add to this that I used to always tack. I used to automatically tack. But actually, unless your tacks are phenomenal, sometimes it is the best case scenario to duck.
Yeah.
It was sort of drilled into us later on in our life that duck, yeah. Unless you are 100% certain you can pull off the perfect tack.
Got you, Anna. And I was just coming on to that because ducking is my favourite thing. It's much maligned, the ducking. And if you do it properly and well, there are quite a lot of advantages in it. Okay, so brilliant, Anna. You've led me on. That's a nice lead in. So what are your options? On starboard, you're on starboard. Let's start with the starboard port situation. That port boat may be crossing in front of the starboard boat. So quite often, it's very advantageous to say, even if you're not sure whether they can cross you, you go. Let them go. A little duck here, small duck behind that boat, is not a bad thing, especially if you want to get across to this side of the course. Yeah? It might be the right thing to do. Let them go. Also, you don't want to piss everyone off and make them tack. If you had made them tack here, first of all, they're going to be angry with you. They may be a brilliant sailor. You don't want to make too many enemies. And then also they may have tacked right on top of you. So there are times when you don't let them go. A little duck is good. So options, and you're on starboard. Okay. Let's move on to what are the options if you're on port. Well, can you cross? We said it, keep it simple. If you can cross, cross when you can. Let's get another pen up. Okay, so if you're on port and you can cross in front of this one, happily, cross when you can. You're going, if you're definitely going out to the right side of the course. Another thing you can do, you can tack on top of them. If it's an enemy, you want to stay between them and the finish line. So if you're on port and you can cross, get over there. Here we go. Quite simple, that one. Especially if you're at the end of a race, as I said, or end of a series, you want to cover those people, get across there. So how do you tell that you can cross? I'm sorry I'm not bringing many of you in here. It's a bit me, but otherwise the edit goes a little bit garbled. So how can you tell whether you can cross that boat? Simply, you can have a look at the angle of him. Yeah, that comes with a bit of experience. But what about the background over here? If that piece of the background, transits or whatever, are moving forward, then you're going to cross. If they're moving back, you're not. That's probably the best way of telling whether you can cross. Simple as that. If the background's moving one way, you can. If it's moving the other way, you can't. So let's have a little look at the options if you can't cross. Again, let's get a pen up. Okay. If you can't cross, you can either tack early. That's what we were talking about. You definitely can't cross. If you definitely want to go this way to the favoured side, tack early because you're down to leeward, or tack really late, tack here. Now, that's a bit more of a bit more risky. It's a lee bow attack, and you do that if you want to slow them down or make them tack away. Okay, so now we're getting into some offensive tactics. Yeah, and I think that what I'd like to do now is just look at the duck, because it's one of my favourite things, and Anna brought it up. It's brilliant. I like it a lot. It's much maligned, the duck. Why? Why do you want a duck? Well, possibly because you want to get clear air, or get out to you're buried in a pack of dirty dogs who are giving you dirty air, so you want to duck all the way through behind them and out to the other side to get yourself clear air. If you're sailing on port and going through the fleet, it's quite often the quickest way to clear your air, because everyone wants to go up on starboard, sail on port, duck a few, and get out the other side. Okay, so if a duck is done well, I'll try and start to draw it over here. Let's have this boat coming in here. This is the most important thing about ducking. I think Anna talked about, if you're not sure about brilliant tacking, then getting brilliant ducking can do you loads and loads of good. So as these boats coming up here, I lost my pen. Boats coming up here, position ones. You're on port. The idea is you bear away with speed to go behind him here. When you bear away, you go faster. So you gain a bit of speed. And the idea is, and I'll draw it here, is to be back up to close hold as you go past their stern, because going past the stern of another boat, on the big boats, we're talking about big boats, you get a little lift. So you've gone away with speed, probably, 3 to 5 boat lengths before you've got to do it. 3 to 5. Very early is the answer. Bear away only onto a close reach. You don't want to be going down here and ducking on a beam reach. That is useless. That slows you down. So you're just a little duck away onto a close reach, and you should be close hauled again here as you go past the stern. I don't know, I kind of do it naturally because I try and kiss their sterns and be clever. And it's done me quite a lot of good in the past. Kiss the stern, off you go. And of course, as you've done this, you're going past their stern. Let's say here. And now what are you going to do? You're on the starboard tack. On the next cross. So 3 important things there. Bear away onto a close reach. You've got speed, you speed up. You get a little lift on their stern, and the next tack, you're on starboard. So ducking, done well, I love it. Never have managed to pull it off properly, but 3 things there that can make you duck, can make you, give you good advantages if you do it really well. I don't know whether Simon's on here. No, he's cooking tonight. And I don't know whether, Anna, you can remember Simon's conundrum, coming off the Corinthian start line on starboard, going out to the bank and then coming back on port, and what he was really talking about. If you can, we can talk about it a little bit later. I'm a bit confused. I was a bit confused at the time. He was saying he comes off the start line on starboard, and I think he's saying he's mostly ahead of the fleet. And he gets over to the riverbank over here, and of course, we've got loads of tide down the middle, and he was trying to work out when he actually tacks and comes back. And it was a bit weird because I'm thinking, well, if you duck, if you have to duck, you have to duck. You get back out onto starboard, but you're still at the head of the fleet. I'll leave that one with you to think about. I don't know whether you can come back with what Simon's conundrum was. So, 3 to 5 boat lengths away, only to a close reach, not late, do it early, otherwise you're heaving it round onto a beam reach and the things go really wrong there. Aim at their stern. You obviously need good crew work. We're not doing really boat trim here, but if that crew haven't eased your main and your jib, and possibly your kicker, depending on what you're doing there, you can really make use of a duck. I'll give you a couple of examples of a duck that really work well. One that I did and one that was done to me. So we were coming up to a finish line. Okay, I was on port and I had someone on starboard. Probably bad positions here, but I ducked them round behind. They got to there, and of course the finish line was up here somewhere, and I was able to come in on starboard. They carried on, they cut a tack, and they were coming in on port. So ducking someone who's on starboard coming up to a finish line, where your next tack to that line, you're on starboard, you had to duck me. Yeah, only you've got to keep your speed up, obviously, and do it well. But because you're bearing away and you've got a bit of speed doing this before you tack, and he's thinking, oh, do I tack? Da, da, da. If you know and anticipate, you get the duck right behind, you get up to that finish line on starboard and they have to go away. All right, they're not drawn in exactly the right place, guys. And I'll give you another one now where someone stitched me right up with a good duck. Here was the mark, upwind mark, ley line. And this guy, I was sailing here. I wasn't on that ley line, wasn't there. And they ducked me and went up and sailed on the ley line, and that was it. That was me stuffed. I could not get back to that ley line because they were up alongside me. So another good way or time to duck on port to keep this boat, which was me at the time, off that bloody ley line. Really annoying. So there are good tactical reasons again to duck. Not only do you need to do it well, but you need to know those situations. Finish line there and a duck onto ley lines. Okay, I've been talking for a long time now. It's 10:30. It's 36 minutes past. I'm just going to talk about one more little thing. We've got a conundrum coming up from Caroline that we've been working on for a couple of weeks. We may have the right answer to in a minute. And while we all think about any questions that you've got on what we've been talking about just now, I'm going to try and play some videos. This is a little bit old-fashioned. I'll just talk about this one thing here, just to give one more thing for the nerds. The slam dunk. So, this is quite an interesting one that brings up a rule. So, the boat here is coming up nicely here. They've ducked behind another boat. And this was a real aggressive move. So as they've gone behind this boat here, this one's tacked. Started tacking on them. So that's called a slam dunk. They've now just absolutely killed your wind, etc., etc. But what happened, and it was an absolutely brilliant move, we had a coach on board at the time. As this boat was as the boat here was starting to tack, going a bit ahead to wind there, we tacked. So at that point in time, two boats were almost head to wind. Now, what I want you to think about that one, it's a new conundrum for this week. The rule is, if you're tacking and you're head to wind, you're not on your close haul course again, you haven't got through it, you have no rights on any other boat. But these two were tacking at the same time. So I thought it was the boat here. Let's get a different color pen. Boat number one that had the rights because they had been on starboard before they tacked. I thought that was the rule at the time. And I was saying, what the hell are you doing? He was on starboard. Does anybody know that rule? These two boats are now gone head to wind because the skipper of our boat said, quick tack, he's going to slam dunk us. Anybody know who has rights here? We'll have that one in the questions afterwards. All right, I had a few more river rules and etc. to go through here, but at this point in time, I think we'll play a video and come to our conundrums. Give it to you before we go into a video. So if I can find a slide here, this was what we've been talking about. Now, I'll start with what I was saying, that our pontoon on the river is a continuous obstruction. Therefore, if a boat gets inside you, trying to get through, past that pontoon, you have to let them in. It becomes a mark of the course, and the three boat length, no, not 3 boat lengths, but the overlapped inside rule pertains. It comes in, and you have to let them through. Now, we discussed it a couple of weeks ago and last week. This is the drawing that Caroline's drawn. What I don't necessarily agree with Caroline is you have, let me get a pen up here. You've drawn this as if the tide's going this way, which it is. We have got tide going that way. The wind hardly ever does that. So therefore, we are usually, I'll draw it over here. We are usually doing that around that pontoon. So I could draw it again, but for now, there's the responses. And this is from a rules chief who wrote the rules. I don't know whether you can see the answer to that. And whether you can read it. Can you read it on the screen? Thumbs up, Bill, Caroline? You can actually read what it says there. Okay, good. So I'm going to leave that up on there, and I'm going to let you have a little look at that for a moment. Yeah, and we are now going to play a video.
Right. Can I just say the reason why I drew the wind from that direction, which isn't a normal direction, was just because it was a neater way of exploring the rule in terms of at what point you did and didn't have to try and give them room.
I understand that, but all right, before we go in the video, let's see if I can get a whiteboard up. Yes, I've got a little whiteboard, and really, I understand why you did that, Caroline, but really, here's our pontoon. Am I drawing this correctly now? No, there's the pontoon end. There's the ramp. Here's the wind. And let's say we've got no tide. Okay, so this is more realistically, so I get your point, but let's have a look at it in reality. What's happening here in these boats? No tide. This is the first one, no tide. A, B, and C. Just a simple explanation of the rule, because we've all, firewood, thank you, Derek. So we've all got the rule that you've just drawn. I'll put it up again, but I'd really rather think about it like this. One, with no tide, what is the rule? That is a continuous obstruction, no navigable room around it because there's a wall here, let's say, going around here. Let's say that's going on, so that makes it more realistic, is what I'm saying. What is the rule there? So, Caroline, I'm going to come back to you and see if you can do it on that, but I'm going to go back. And then number two, obviously it's going to change with tide, because when the tide's pushing us this way, he's stuffed, and this one might just make it past. So we'll do it without tide to find out the rule, and then tide for common sense, because we're not allowed to smash boats up. Is that okay? I'm going to try and play this video now. Obviously, that was a cut, everyone. So I can now cut back to that showing the video, but I will leave you with Caroline's conundrum again up on the screen, rather than my drawing for now, so you get the rule to start with. So we get two things going on. We've got that one, which we could do realistically with our wind directions and tides on our pontoon, and we've got the two boats tacking into each other, where the rule is when you're passing head to wind, you've no rights whatsoever on any boat whatsoever until you've gone close hauled again on the other tack. So we'll come back to them in a minute. This is usually a mess. I'm going to try and play you some weird video while you all have a little think about those. So, Gareth, make host. I've lost Kate Alexander. Make host. Talk amongst yourselves, have a little chat, unmute yourselves while I get going on this. I can't hear any of you talking about it. Oh.
I have to think of a scenario involving the pontoon for every one of the lessons.
It's the same bloody scenario, Derek, and it keeps coming back to bite me in the arse. Hello, Rory. Hello, everyone. Don't know why I can't see Peter or Tim or James or Anna. There we go. So now all I've got to do is make sure I'm host again.
Anna's chopping carrots and firewood.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm still here. My carrots are chopped.
Yeah, and I can't find all my.
The fact that she was taking like a 3-foot run up.
All right, so I can get a screen back up again. Have you all got me again here? Everyone's unmuted?
Yep.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, good. So just one little bit before we get into discussing those. And what I'm going to do is the outtakes or the best conversations and discussions about those rules will be all put into one big thing for an outtakes role and discussion of rules and advice. I have got more rules on that river, which we can start off before we get to the upwind mark next week. Yeah. So you've got approach and obstructions and U-tack and sailing towards bends and wind bends, etc., etc. But so at the end of the video, what we're going to do is I've just got a couple of little bits from my correspondent to finish off with. The correspondent, you probably know, is the Mole, and he sends me these every now and again. I think last night's messages were probably after a few drinks, and his question was, how big is the Pacific Ocean? And the only answer I could think of is, can you be a bit more Pacific? And he came back in another drunken, garbled message there, said, so, okay, right, then try this one. If we get electrons from electricity, do we get morons from morality? So those are the two from the Mole, just to finish off with. And we'll end the video now very soon, although we won't. We'll record probably because I love the look of you all. But thanks for all for coming.
Thank you.
Need to finish here. Let's have a look at our conundrums. Cheers all.